Welcome everyone to today's webinar from the Open Group. As you can see, is brought to us today by a partner company, Biz Design, which is a very active member of the Open Group. And today's speaker is Remco Blom from Biz Design. Before I go to Remco do his presentation, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping issues just to keep the event moving forward smoothly. For regards questions, if you'd like to ask a question that you'd like Remco to answer at the end of his presentation, can I ask you to write that question into the QA facility? If you do write a question into the QA facility, please could you address it to all participants, why everyone gets to see all the questions that are being submitted. And as already suggested, we will answer as many of the questions as we possibly can at the end of Remco's presentation. This is also being fully recorded, so if for any reason you have to leave early or experience any local technical difficulties, I know that sometimes we do have audio outages around the world, then a full recording of the event will be available tomorrow, and everyone who has registered for the event with an email with the appropriate link to where they can access that recording. So if you're ready, can I ask you to start your presentation?
Yeah, Simon, thank you very much for the opportunity to present again for the Open Group audience. This time my presentation is about enterprise architecture for decision makers and managers. Crash course enterprise architecture for managers. This is a presentation to help enterprise architects improve the effectiveness of their communication and collaboration with decision makers. So, sorry to all CEOs in the audience. I think it's an interesting presentation for you as well, but this is a crash course on EA for you. It's more targeted at enterprise architects to help them improve their collaboration with decision makers. And an important tool for yourself, whether you are a trusted advisor for managers, because I've learned is one of the most important elements to engage effectively with management and decision makers. And another question is, are you able to really support decision making? So not giving insight, but also present advice. Communication is a key aspect in engagement. First, introduce Biz Design and myself to discuss the subject of enterprise architecture's value proposition for decision makers. So is it that we as enterprise architects promise and that we deliver to decision makers? And some explanation on the aspect of visualization. A lot of models as architects and principles, and some of them we can visualize. And to some audiences, boxes and lines work fine. First, you should seek alternatives. Then we're on different types of decisions. So throughout the phases of business transformation, there are different types of decisions to make, and we will discuss how EA can support those different types of decisions. And then, of this presentation, we will dive into the subject of change management. You do that quite briefly. It's a very important aspect to understand what type of management approach fits you, fits your organization, and fits enterprise architecture. And then we show up with pitfalls and tips. My name is Remco Blom. I'm an enterprise architecture consultant and service line manager within Biz Design. You can follow me on Twitter @BlomR. My background is business, so I studied business and a specialist in organizational change and organizational design and change management at the Nijmegen University. I have courses on Archimate, TOGAF, objects that are related to it, also on process management. And we're all important, large, information-intensive customers of Biz Design. Large governmental organizations, financial institutions, but also in industry and media. We have a vision. Biz DNA. So we are a spin-off of a research project on organizational design change. There was a method created, a software tool. And we are to help organizations change themselves rather than just fly in, change them, and then fly out. our approach is that we learn people how to change themselves in the future. A global presence in Europe. We have several offices, also in North America. In countries where we don't have an office, we work with partners. So we ambition to independently carry out change initiatives. We do with based solutions that provide decision making and align strategy, design, and implementation. And our view on enterprise architecture is to align these different disciplines. Come back later on in this presentation as an important aspect, and we use open standards to do so. We are positioned as a leader in Gartner's Magic Quadrant with our tool. We provide services and consultancy, but also training on subjects regarding business transformation. So, how do decision makers see us as architects? I think that EA, sitting in the basement making tons of paper, and it smells a bit like IT, and therefore it is bad for your career. Others see us or you as presenting long stories and not very action-oriented. Present action, so not just presenting a certain insight, but also present a way forward is a very, very important aspect in the engagement with decision makers. You present pictures, and for some people, these are a bit or complex. That might confuse people. So some decision makers think enterprise architecture is about complex pictures. So it could be, what actually is an enterprise? And having a discussion with a decision maker or a high-level manager about what is the courageous undertaking that we are in for, useful. And sometimes we use animal spirits to discuss these things. So is our organization a bird? So we do what other people tell us. We're more of a tiger, really a killer organization and in it for winning. Or maybe more monkey, doing what he feels like and does whatever he finds appropriate to do. So more. So what animal can describe our organization? Sometimes be a very alternative approach, having a discussion of what it is that we are in for, what is the undertaking that we that is what describes our enterprise best. So about what the enterprise is and what our goals are is an important aspect. But there's how do you scope the enterprise? The basic understanding is in the circle. So we make an enterprise architecture of our organization. We believe that you could take a way broader approach, also taking into account service providers, partners, or take into your prospects, or even broader, in all broader stakeholders in the ecosystem. For instance, to take into account the impact of regulation coming from government, and important also in regards to how you design your organization. Enterprise is, but also discussing with decision makers what describes your enterprise, and then the decision maker, a manager, has the expectation to take a design. So if architecture is something that is for buildings or for bridges, you presented to them earlier that it's more about landscaping architecture rather than building architecture. But can you photograph or realistically draw an organization? it always it's a presentation of elements of that reality. And is that we make a design and we add a certain style to it. So it's not just about description, but it's about the design and adding a certain style. Price, yeah, you could start with the value chain of Porter. It is not great to represent the enterprise because it does not culture is an important aspect. So it's all about operation. It's not about change, and not be positioned in the value chain. Also, the portfolio, which is very much related to the whole change initiative, is positioned in Porter's value chain. Approach to represent the enterprise, which is oriented on change, is value chain for enterprise investment. With we make money, or we want to keep things cheap. Also goals, and then there's the question: how do we structure ourselves? And that is what architecture is about, to bring structure. And also, so enterprise portfolio management, we consider what to take in what sequence to move action of our strategy. So an enterprise architecture is there very and is very related to value. So architecture should be to change to and questions: where do we put our money? Stakeholders, we believe following a certain pain chain, to put positively, a gain chain is very useful. We learned that finding the right stakeholder and an access point can be very valuable. And then for what are their issues or their pains. So analysis, we look at a certain paperwork, use our network inside an organization to better understand what is that on the agenda of these decision makers. We add, or in certain cases, even interview the influencers around these stakeholders. And obviously, we want to get in touch with them. So we ask them what it is that you are about, or that you about, or it is the biggest opportunity for our organization. So what is going to make the difference for them? And then build a value proposition about it is that enterprise architecture can bring with regard to this pain or gain. Proving to be very helpful is to ask for referrals to move up the chain. So if you have a very good relation and a very long history with, for instance, CIO, maybe CIO can help you get in touch with the CFO, which is the CIO has related to cost, and cost always is on the mind of the CFO. And that can to move from influencing systems towards advice on processes, for instance. So build such a pain chain or a gain is proven to be a very valuable route engage with makers. And one of the things that we do for companies is that we help them build value propositions. I don't know, for others not. What we also do is build enterprise architecture capabilities. The starting point of building an enterprise architecture capability is to explain why it is that you are here, what it is that you bring to the table. So understanding your customers, your enterprise architect customers, typically internal customers, you have to understand at the right side jobs, what it is that they do, what it is that they worry about, their pains, but also gains, what it is that they want. And side in the squawks, your product services that you as an team provide, and what acts over model principles EOs that you bring to the table, what aspects of those products and services really what pains and what gains. To make such a value proposition canvas for enterprise architecture be of great value in engaging with decision makers. To expect there, of course, make it better than it would be anyway. So if there's not improving something, or it's not any value at all, and value in terms of faster, cheaper, more flexible, then it's very likely this will invest in it in the first place. From the perspective of the extended enterprise, so broader than just the walls of the building that you're in. You should, in cases, even lead, but influence. And there's an advice on how initiatives fit or potentially fit with the strategy, and how new initiatives fit the current structure. So how far away is this from where we are now? How does this integrate, not just systems perspective, but also in business perspective and organizational perspective, to improve the performance through structural optimization and innovation. So about improving conversation, we have customers at the desk, but it's more how we put our resources and how we optimize the processes and usage of in those processes. And to work. For a PhD study Raymond Lott made in 2010, he proved that the application of architecture in projects, a positive correlation with customer satisfaction and with results delivered, for instance. Also, regard to budget overrun and time overrun that were done under architecture were performing significantly better, or projects that were not doing enterprise architecture or were not run under architecture. Something that you as an architect or in the architecture community just say to each other, but this is something that has really been measured. The standard work from Gene Ross on enterprise architecture as a strategy presents the benefits of improved architecture maturity, the strategic effectiveness, the operational efficiency, and customer intimacy go up. IT budgets go down, and in the different maturity levels, on the IT budget is the more mature you are. And strategic impact and improved flexibility were measured as positive. So I think enterprise is understood generally, and so is architecture, but the value proposition of EA is bringing these together. So bringing bold, courageous undertaking the enterprise is, and the design style to it, bring that together. And I believe it's not very well understood throughout decision makers today. Opportunity to relate enterprise investments with enterprise architecture. So creation of strategy, where do we put our resources, and the execution, how that we are really reaching these goals. There. So they are proven, for instance, by these PhD studies and what Gene Ross did, but they are not always reached and not always seen. And it can be a big opportunity for you to follow and out these value proposition for EA. So the organization says yes to EA, maybe you improved your value proposition, and one of the elements that you need to do is that you need to present results to the organization, decision makers. People, this kind of visualizations, even in an open standard, very nice and structured boxes and lines. But people, this kind of views is very similar to boxes and thingies and lines, but it doesn't really tell anything. Architecture is very much about leaving out. You present the whole architecture to stakeholders, just too complex. You have much ambitions about presenting all different aspects of EA in repository that you cannot just dump the repository in a diagram. So boxing for a limited audience, you need to express the architecture and its implications, and especially these implications are important. So typically in finance, they like tables, and they are used to looking at charts. People with a legal background, typical governmental organizations, we see a lot of men with a legal background. They prefer text over pictures. Are involved in planning would like the changes and differences, so the before-after comparison pictures. And working or that have a background in engineering, they are they tend to digest detailed diagrams a bit better. We believe that this architecture that you're building is a valuable thing, and that you need to store and maintain it in one place, so that there is one spot where reality is modeled, but also one spot where you work on the design of your future, your intended future. And a repository, you should be able to generate certain different views, going also deep down to the infrastructure, with the business presentations, also pie charts or matrices should be generated out of this repository where you maintain the information, and then for different stakeholders, you put different aspects of your architecture. So that was presented in a conference. Schiphol Airport, they have different airport process services, infrastructure, and they present it like this. And I think this helps to inform people what EA is, and to very closely to their actual business. That works great, but it doesn't really help in making decisions. So this to be an informing view rather than a decision-making view. We have a presentation of scenarios and then the usage of metaphors. Do we do it all in one? Do we put all money on one horse? Win midfield, the midfield, or in defense? That kind of method could work if your stakeholder is interested in football, soccer. I'm to present this presentation we made for a customer that was referring to golf as a sport. So if it's more into golf, you talk about sport, and then you can refer to stuff like hole-in-one, birdie and bogey. You can use metaphors regarding the caddy and the golf cart. Help you, but also engage you and your architecture team to away from the diagrams and build a storyline that is more engaging for your audience. Of course, if they accept your story, you might need the more in-depth diagrams using boxes. And then using overlays can be a useful way to visualize what is good in green and what is bad in red. I think that accepted condition use green good and red for bad, and it's very insightful. Even if you don't know the details of this diagram, you can easily see what are the important aspects to discuss in a meeting, for instance. And then a thing we have learned is to not just present the picture itself, but build the story from the perspective of money. Where are our costs? How is our cost and application landscape built up at the top left view? where are we at risk? What applications have a specific risk level? How is our landscape moving over time? That is important when engaging with high-level management to present your architecture or your architectural implications in terms of money, time, and risk, because this is what's on a decision maker's mind, how they make decisions. So you get it, what type of risk is involved and how much is going to cost me. Bring me. This does not fit all. Somebody legal needs, with the legal background, needs to the information presented differently, and the same somebody in finance and somebody in a project. So it's different aspects of the architecture to be presented, but also different ways of presenting it. Decisions, how EA supports. What does a decision maker do? Entrepreneurs in smaller organizations, entrepreneurs take decisions very fast. And they are used to doing so even when not all information is available. So on their gut feeling, they have probably little time, they need to move fast. In organizations, management want to have more grip. The and the potential pain from making the wrong decision for their own career is can be quite large. So therefore, they want more information. So what kind executives think about how do we develop and implement strategy, and how do we organize and plan our resources regarding strategy implementation? Collaboration with the PMO, discuss where to invest in investment portfolio. And project management plans out the whole set of projects. And responsible for the design, development, and delivery of certain functionality and making the change happen. Left side, you see operational thing manager's mind. So the IT manager is more about service management. Businesses, they want to optimize performance in certain processes and they want to manage risk. In all different aspects, there are decisions to be made, and R can play a role in that. We have to a stakeholder map to make a lot of stakeholders regarding this enterprise architecture effort that you're taking, and them on this very simple grid. How much power do they have? How much interest do they have regarding or regarding a certain initiative that you're taking? Depending on their position, you create a certain communication plan, and you design how you communicate with them, what type of communication you're going to share with them, and what sort of channels you're going to use. And for big audiences on the right top of this chart, with a lot of power and a lot of interest, we consider them key players and make our communication as personal as possible. It's all the way with your golf storyline. And this is, you keep it a bit more general. Strategy is an important discipline, but also capability-based planning, portfolio management, project management, design and development and delivery, service management, process data management, and governance and risk. And believe that enterprise architecture can be the knowledge hub, relating the different disciplines, support decision making throughout the cycle. So help along disciplines to change and run the business. Let's have. So what's the strategy? Questions are asked there by executives and business managers discussing the current and future strategy. What current and potential future business model, for instance? So from enterprise architecture perspective, we can engage in those discussions, and we can help them visualize the business models we can present how is this business model different from what we do today. For instance, in a color overlay. The old situation, we already had everything that is blue here, but in the new situation, we add all green stuff. So in this case, this is a business model canvas, and we present that we are opening a new market in offices and companies, selling greater experience in the office. Next, Presso into the office space, making money on office machines and office cups. But there we need to implement account management as a customer relationship, but also as a key activity. Level view to show what it is that our new business model looks like, how different from what we do today. Not too fast. And in some cases, you need to already stage build the business case underneath such a strategy. Certain attributes regarding cost on the left bottom and regarding revenue on the right bottom, and then you can play around and get an understanding of where tipping point this business case is positive. Our strategy and have an understanding. Still level, we set our goals and say, okay, for us, operational excellence is very important, and therefore we need to centralize our information systems. How will we measure the result? So we know if we are on the right track. Instead of KPIs, process variance, information consistency, and regulatory compliance, that we will measure with regard to this goal at a time to it. In this case, Q1 for 2018. This is using concepts like goals, drivers, KPIs, assessments, and plateaus. Presented this in a matrix to some stakeholders rather than as a diagram. And we learned that this type of diagrams works okay for some schools who are strategy implementation, which works less for those that are involved in strategy development, because those are typically more creative people preferring to communicate in terms of business models, for instance, and less in this more formalized way of model. Sometimes we have it in a repository and then we create a text on the basis of it, or a matrix showing how goals are related to KPIs. And say, okay, if we have our strategy and we understand what it is and how we measure success, we understand what type of business capabilities are then important. Work out goals, and we try to requirements, and then define the few capabilities we need. This work that needs to be done. But is it that we communicate this view? Probably is. But a big overall capability map, a business capability map, is something that we believe you can explain, teach to people, and use it as a background to discuss business issues, but also IT-related issues. People read these capabilities and say, yes, this is what we do, or this is what we need to be able to do. And these capabilities, or increments, can be presented. These are now explained in white papers as a little extension for Archimate. Like that, they are added to the new version of Archimate. Today, an extension, so not yet a real part of the Archimate standard. Valuable picture of this capability map, and then go out, for instance, product management, and say, okay, what it is that we need to be able to do with regards to product management. At the top of this view, you can present issues, you can planning, you can present performance. It's an important background picture that needs understood, be created in collaboration with your organization. And per incident, do we need to grow? External or on information or on people, process, product, technology, what sort of aspects? So where do we stand today and how can we move forward with regards to this capability? So on a high level, we drip on and try to explain and have a discussion on what is our ambition really. KPIs again. So process adaptability, process performance, process variance. So underneath all these different aspects, there are ways to measure where now and what your ambition is with regard to those aspects. So we as our enterprise architects contribute to the creation and the better understanding of the strategy and capability map to present current and future business capabilities and our ambition. The organization asks where to invest and how to that as a whole. That you should work backwards. So with to your portfolio and of it, we think you should answer questions first. What is the dashboard that we need? We present to people with regard to this portfolio. What metrics do we need to present in that dashboard? And then what objects, relations, and attributes need to be modeled? Confound, just put everything in a repository and see what you can do with it. That is probably a lot more work and efficient, plus less effective. You are likely to present too much information. We strategic application portfolio, that's CIO. We want this IT alignment and performance, and we measure that in terms of SLA compliance, strategic value, cost, business value, technical risk. A set of dashboards to present those metrics with. For instance, analysis. So what's in, what to find out. We have 5 applications, and we did this test on. So what to invest in and how big they currently are refers to the cost in this case. We advise and not just set boxes and lines. You do this first and say, okay, now we have this time analysis. Can we plot the result of that analysis on top of our already known application landscape view and show in it we lays out and in green is target application and is tolerate. Okay, to create a strategy to create capability-based models and discuss them with the business to support decision making where to invest in. We want to build change portfolios for indications and project portfolios. We should present gap analysis, so we know today and where we want to be. What of the model is what we already have? So what is in Q1, which is in yellow, and what then is created in track number 1, that is green. So the picture shows we have different for New York, London, and Amsterdam, but our transition number 1, we will move 1 billing service. Pictures, but with the right supporting text, you can very easily present, even when it's boxes and lines, because of overlay, that they, okay, we know what is the route that you're taking. We're presenting progress and transitions is not good enough. We need to present them in time. The portfolio teams, portfolio management teams create roadmaps. You're able to align the roadmap of the PMO with the content-oriented approach or the quality-oriented approach of enterprise architecture, you are really making a big step forward in bringing the change capability in your organization. So we program projects showing the dependencies and all to components inside your enterprise architecture. So to know your end harmonized billing process on your business and application landscape, and how that relates to the involvement of an APM process, because that's the same time there will be some relations to manage between the two projects. So not presenting a list of projects in an Excel sheet, presenting a timeline, make a sort of Gantt chart, and necessary deep dive into the content relations with regard to the enterprise architecture. So present how is your landscape evolving over time, not projects, but also on the landscape, and then you can combine the two, thinking how the landscape through years with the different projects in pink in between is even from a very broad applications all the way into 2016 to your single application, in this case insurance company. Architecture plays a crucial role in business transformation decisions. Capability needs business capabilities that are required, and then enterprise architecture presents the recommended investments with benefit and cost with regard to those capabilities, where planning also as a discipline needs to be aligned with enterprise portfolio management. Business cases and budgets then presents initiative evaluation and comparison to enterprise portfolio management to help them advise on initiatives and take decisions where fund. Then program and project management, enterprise architecture delivers implementation roadmaps and oversight of the whole and not just the different aspects within such a landscape. The program deliver then the realized architecture and the value that is delivered to portfolio management. And then finally, management team preserve the results realized towards capability-based planning, so that there are new capabilities inside the company for customers and employees, and that contributing directly to the implementation of the strategy. There are projects running, so enterprise architecture then relating to those. I think you probably saw the webinar by my colleague, Mark Langhorst, on enterprise architecture in agile environments. And I think really interesting for you if your design and delivery is using agile approaches. But this is also developing project start architectures in this. Enterprise architecture play a crucial role. Eyes on reuse. Decisions taken, design and development with regard to reuse should be influenced by enterprise architects. And deviations. It's very unlikely that the architects will decide on the deviations. It's a steering committee or architecture board. But the impact of change of those requested deviations or requested changes a very important task of enterprise architecture. Architecture implementation roadmaps and oversight to the project management that then delivers requirements, resources to the projects running. Enterprise architecture delivers guidance from perspective principles or project start architectures, in TOGAF terms, an architectural contract. And then check, does your validation, can we build it, is this workable, is it feasible? And then the architectural updates, because they created something something that needs to be added to the repository. Then develop and delivery outcomes should cover then the requirements set by and the constraints set by program and project management. And then architecture is a result from the program level from the individual project. On the earlier presented graph, in which EA is central, the more oriented on operational stuff. Of course, of decisions taken in service management as well, and architecture can influence those decisions. And it's better when EA is aligned with service management and integrated, for instance, the CMDB integrated with the repository or interfaced with the repository. But these are of decisions, so to speak. Counts in the project where and in the run state where this is working, and of course certain pains and gains, but they work on more detailed process typically. And we advise to align those, so where the business optimizing, also lean initiatives, for instance applying PPMN for their business processes, should have a relation with processes that are maintained in your EA repository. And this is where in or in the sense of your application landscape in more detail, they should have a relation between what is written down in UML models, for instance, and your architectural models. This is for big rules. So all that be aligned or integrated to improve the capability of making impact assessments, not just for one aspect, what does process change mean to other processes, but also to go from the process deeper into the architecture towards data and infrastructure. And only being able to align all of these or integrate these, you're able to sort this in the detailed world from the perspective of the whole, leveraging the coherence that you're able to present. And then the whole field of governance, risk and compliance. Of course, you support that from an EA perspective to help size, for instance, security efforts, or also an extension of the Archimate language is under assessment in the open group, where there are element threat events, vulnerabilities, and risks, and measures are added. Present those in terms of diagrams, but more in terms of PCs or views. We can show where you are critically at risk and where risks are low. Operational side. So on the side of this model, they are helped with the views that you generate from an enterprise architecture perspective, the different alternatives that you present, and you are the advisor, and the daily running operation, all sorts of decisions are made as well, but these are typically less impactful decisions with regard to the enterprise architecture. So enterprise architecture connects all these different organizations, and on different lines you use different views to communicate the impact of enterprise architecture with regard to those disciplines. Then I would remark regarding change management. So, and architecture in itself value when it is used. So, our goal is to shape change and to guide the implementation. And you once said to me, just having these descriptions, we need to use them. So if we can't find the descriptions and we can't find what we need inside the descriptions, why have them at all? He was very keen for the As to make something that is used. A change management approach can be very helpful in taking a certain approach with regard to your architecture and the presentation of it. So the question is, what detail level and what sort of direction do we need to bring? What to decide? What do we know? Aspects, as well as implementability. Is that a word? I don't know, but you probably know what I mean. Can we actually implement it? Who is the problem we solve? That's a question as well. Are we to do it? So do we get the commitment for it, or is it just sort of also we are building? Organizations and some change agents, perspective, growth and learning from individual perspective to put initiative forward. And for it's very important that the journey is feasible and that they imagine where they go through. Then, what is the culture in the organization? Push. Do we reward? How does that work? And paradigms developed by the KDW, who's a Dutchman. There are more of these kind of paradigms, but we work a lot with color paradigms, and they help you to indicate where your organization stands, but also where you stand, and this helps you to find alternative routes. Change paradigm or war is a yellow print agent. Change in this case seen as a negotiation exercise into feasible solutions. It's interest. It's about power, know the people, and striving for agreement. And this is then the blueprint change approach. And things will change if there is clearly specified result, which is influence, for instance. So the blueprint. Then we approach that is more the red approach about rewarding people and motivation. People to do what we expect them to do by giving them incentives or punishment. The human factor, the vital role here. A knowledge of learning, perspective that people are motivated to discover the limits of their competencies. To learn. So in those cases, the environment is not helped by punishment, but by the white approach, which is a very open approach. Everybody can be themselves, and we need to encourage and stimulate people to have new ideas. That's evolution and about taking other approaches, which very much fits Star, for instance. So they can work. Most to understand here, I think, is to understand where enterprise architecture is positioned. That is in blue. It's a planning approach. It believes that you can change the world if you have designed it right and planned it right. But one of the many change approaches an organization can take. The higher you are in the organization, the more important the part becomes, especially in large organizations. So, interest of different parties, influencing the right people at the right moment, and let people influence each other. And that game is very vital in decision making in relations at a management level. So in architects in the Netherlands, there was a discussion on what are the different skills and what are the important approaches for different type of architects. Where projects are very much oriented on planning, enterprise architects should be way more oriented influencing. We need to understand a bit about motivation and learning as well, but it's really oriented on influencing. So therefore, my advice, if you want to move up in your towards the board in time and influencing people and get better in influencing, maybe sales training can be very helpful, because that's where influencing is very central. There is trust. Be a brilliant architect, but management has to trust and do with their precious responsibility. So to oversee all the consequences, and the benefit is that you make a good plan and that you have a report. But in the end, they look at you and they either believe you or they don't. You explain the main lines and interesting details, and that's also an aspect that you need to earn. It's not something that you can ask for. It's something that you need to earn, and it goes slowly and step by step. And doing results and do as you promise will help you build step by step. Your architecture start showing its consequences. So less discussion about the content and the boxes and the lines, but more, what does this mean? 5 comments. 2. So enterprise architects tend to present a lot. So in this presentation, sorry about that. Too many pictures. So also a common pitfall. Present new pictures in every presentation. My advice here is to work on use of a common set. Business capability model, application model, data model. That's it. And then present a different subject in that context. Using start the end. Put your appendix. Job, but it's not relevant for all audience. Just want to know what is your conclusion, and then they dive into the detail if they want to. Don't make simple really is a common pitfall, making it very, very simple pictures. Some managers want it simpler, and then you end up with a black box, and that doesn't really help. Sometimes it's really complex, and making it too simple will just sometimes help you and give you a grade from the board, but it's not helping you to discuss the right things and helping them in decision making. Always be boring. Some architects tend to bring boring stories to the table. Way inspiring is a future use case. Say, this is Bob, and Bob is a customer in 2020, and if Bob engages with our bank, this is what he sees, this is what he gets. Or Disney, and she works in HR, and this will work like this. Presenting and present a risk. An issue for middle management, executive a bit more generic goals. Think there, not just ask questions. Some architects keep asking questions, and in cases, management doesn't know either. And these are likely of a shorter life than the architecture. Strategies tend to last for 2 to 3 years, where the architecture that is built on the basis of it has lasted for 7 years. Always present timelines, explain, but also explain how to move forward. Just mentioning it's really, really complex, and it's not enough. And then scenarios. We can do A, we can do nothing, and we can do C, pros and cons, and let others decide on the basis of your advice. That's it. Thank you, and I hope this was interesting for you. Feel free to download our blogs, ebooks, customaries, etc. from our website, bizdesign.com. And if you download this slide set, you can use bit.ly shortened URL to bring you to that place. You will also get a follow-up email from the open group. Refers to the recording of this presentation. Thank you.
Fantastic. You said be boring, but I can assure you haven't been boring today. That's a great presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Actually we've actually reached the end of our time, but there are a couple of questions that I would like just to end up with, if that's okay, Remco.
That's fine, thank you. Go ahead.
With a question from Lionel, asks, is EA still primarily rooted in the technology space of organisations? He goes on and says, designing and designing capability with technology realm, enable and grow business outcomes.
In many cases that is still the case. So enterprise architecture in most or many organizations still is enterprise IT architecture. And they're working on IT capabilities to improve business performance. In practice, it is not. So in some of the organizations that we are working in, we help to, on strategy basis, design operating models. So how much are we going to invest in processing, and how much effort will we put, and how important is this integration, so the sharing of data. This is all sorts of IT implications, but effectively it is a business decision. Standardizing our businesses throughout the world, or do we believe that it is better for our business to do all sorts of local implementation and different processes throughout the world? That really is a business decision that has big architectural impact. So depending on where EA is positioned, under the CIO, or close to the PO or the strategy office, then in the last case you have way more business impact.
Okay, today's presentation with this last question, Remco. This is from Frederick. He says, in order to be sure to be heard, it will also be interesting to build an EA value on the 5 interrelated drivers understood by decision makers, and explains drivers being people, cash, growth, assets, and profit.
In short, yes, that would be a very good idea. So the you can get with presenting the of EA in general, but more specific, the value of your designed enterprise architecture, that would be the closer you can get to those goals, to the business goals. That is very, very important. So that is a very important contribution from Frederick, that if you get to the business goals and explain your contribution in terms of those goals, the more accepted you will be, and the closer your EA will be towards really bringing business value.
That's great. Well, as I said, I think we better draw to today's event to a conclusion now. We have got some questions still on the QA, so Remco, what I'll do, I'll save those and I'll forward those to you, and I'm sure you'll be happy to take those offline. At this present point in time, I think I'm going to say thank you to Remco. Thank you for everyone for joining us today, and I'm going to end today's presentation. Many thanks.